What is going on, everyone? Had a nice little vacation last week, but I am back in the shop, back on the BMW. So today I want to focus in on continuing along on the drivetrain. With the motor more or less complete, minus a couple things here and there, I'm ready to start on the clutch and then the transmission. Now, BMW Airheads, as you can probably tell just by looking at this thing, are uniquely designed. They're one of the few types of bikes that has a crankshaft that runs longitudinally rather than transverse. There's a couple others, Moto Guzzi's, Honda CX500s, that sort of thing. But what that means is the end of the crankshaft is a flywheel right here on the back of the motor that a clutch goes onto, very similar to the way a clutch works on a car. That is just one of many, many things that makes these bikes so unique. So before I put the transmission on, of course, I need to install the clutch. And obviously, the way you install a clutch and an airhead is going to be pretty different from most bikes. In fact, if you've ever done a clutch install on a car, then it's actually pretty similar to that. Let me show you the parts. So rather than a series of clutch plates in a basket, the airhead clutch is much more similar to that of a car. So starting from the flywheel and working back towards the transmission, first a spring plate, followed by a pressure plate, aka a diaphragm. Then the actual clutch plate itself, you can see the friction material around the outside edge. And finally this guy called a thrust ring. Here's an example of how that's set up in the service manual. Now essentially this clutch plate is trapped in between the thrust ring and the pressure plate. There's a hole in the center here that a stud from the transmission goes through and pushes it back and forth when you engage the clutch. That moves the spring plate, disengaging the clutch, allowing you to coast. The clutch plate itself is physically attached to the transmission output spline. However, it free floats in this area of the thrust ring and the pressure plate. So the install requires that you center this spline so that it's easy to install the transmission. Now, when you buy a clutch kit for a car, it typically comes with a centering tool. It's just like generally a plastic piece that you put into the splines to automatically center that clutch plate so you don't have to worry about that during install. The transmission goes right in. Not necessarily the case with the BMWs. They might expect you to purchase that tool separately. And it's about $25. Now, if you watched any of my other videos, you know that I'm hesitant to purchase specialty tools when I can make them. Is it worth buying a lathe just to avoid buying a $25 clutch centering tool? No, but if you have a lathe, then save your money and make it yourself. Obviously this starter motor needs a paint job, but we've got a budget that we're working towards, so this will be for another day. I already did rear suspension and putting the wheel on and everything in the last video, so I'm not going to do that again. I was thinking perhaps I'll make shorter videos, that way I can put them out more often. Alright, so we got the clutch in, the transmission on, we've got the swing arm attached, and a couple other little things like the starter, the crank breather, and the starter cover, so not bad for, a couple hours. So yeah, I'm gonna pack up my tools, go home, eat some dinner, and I'll see you in the next one.